This is part 2 of my recap on my instant death ability is so overpowered. You can watch the previous parts with the link in the description below at the end of the last episode. The anime opens by showing Yogiri and Danora arriving at the royal castle. However, there were several guards that they couldn't understand at that time, and therefore they were told to wait outside for a while. Not long after, someone came to pick them up. His name is Masayuko. At that time, he used the same language as the two of them. Yogiri then asked Masayuko several things. However, because the response was not good, they then left that place. But Masayuko said that he didn't mind letting Danora stay at his place, but they immediately refused and left Masayuko. As they travel, they begin to realize that the system of this fantasy world is extraordinary with its mixture of races and humans. Suddenly, a half-human girl came and said whether they were candidates for Sage. The girl's name is Mairyu. At that time, Mairyu offered free help to them and would help them wholeheartedly. The reason he wanted to help the two of them was because Mairyu really wanted to get to know the person who would become the Sage candidate. In the end, they both agreed and took Mairyu as their guide. Then they went to the store to buy new clothes. But suddenly, everything doesn't go according to plan. This is Mairyu's trap. It can be seen that many bandits have surrounded them, and all this is because of Mairyu's actions. It is known that the bandits' goal was not just money, but they also targeted Sage candidates who were not talented. Yogiri, who heard this, said that if your goal was clear, everything was clear, and because he already knew the bandits' goal, he didn't hesitate to kill them all. Initially, the bandits underestimated Yogiri and laughed at him because he did not have the gift of the Sage. Even Mairyu also underestimated Yogiri and said that he would not be able to win against the bandits. Yogiri then said casually that everyone here had to die, and right at that moment behind Yogiri, the bandit suddenly died instantly. However, Yogiri's actions didn't stop there. He immediately ordered the others to half-die. But unfortunately, the half-dead effect of Yogiri alone is very terrible. Yogiri also ordered several things such as a sprained ankle, paralyzing his hands, and also paralyzing his eyes. But some of them were also killed at that time, because the effect of the Yogiri's power was too terrible. Everyone died instantly on the spot.
とりあえず今何を半分死ね右足首左腕
高藤君
眼球効率が悪いな
Seeing Yogiri's terrible power, Mairyu became afraid at that time. Then he begged Yogiri for forgiveness that he had a younger brother at home who was waiting for him to come home. But for Yogiri, that is not a reason for them to sell other people. Yogiri then ordered them both to die right then and there. But apparently there was no effect. Because of that, the two of them tried to escape from that place too. When they were too far from Yogiri, suddenly they both died in that place. Then when they wanted to leave, suddenly a guard arrived who immediately stopped Yogiri and Danora. One of the guards named Edgar asked why this could happen. Yogiri then explained that everyone suddenly fainted instantly. Edgar said that he had just seen everyone faint when they wanted to attack Yogiri. They also underestimated Yogiri and Danora because they did not have the strength like the other Sage candidates. Because of this, they couldn't blame Yogiri and Danora for creating this mess. Then, one of them apologized to Yogiri for his captain's rude actions. Then at that time, Yogiri asked for directions about lodging. Not long after, they arrived at a very magnificent inn. After finding accommodation, they immediately rested. Then the scene changes. Danora, who is thinking about Yogiri, suddenly appears a ghostly woman at her place. Seeing the ghost, Danora immediately assumed that it was her brother because he had a face that was very similar to her brother. However, it turns out that the ghost is Moko Danmora, who is the wife of the founder of the Danora family. She is the guardian spirit of Danora herself. The reason Moko didn't appear in the first place was because he was very afraid of the power of Yogiri. In other words, it turns out that the power of Yogiri has an effect on even spirits. Because of that, Moko told Danora to tell Yogiri that he would not harm anything. Danora also asked Moko many questions about what he did to protect Danora. Based on Moko's explanation, he can protect Danora from any attacks other than physical attacks. Even the installation of Danora's gift was not installed because of Moko's actions. He had prevented the installation of Cheyenne's gift. But because Danora was upset at that time, Moko then explained everything to Danora. Even though the gift basically gives power, it is something suspicious that is embedded in a person's body. With the gift, a person will be under the control of the sage and including his own life. Because of this, Moko then stopped giving gifts to Danora. The next day, Danora met Yogiri. Here, Danora also asked Yogiri if they would follow the others. But suddenly, a woman named Celestina came. He had searched for their classmate's location and how to get there. Not only that, Celestina also helped with other needs and provided tickets to the capital. Long story short, they then continued their journey by train. Danara also seemed to have explained about Moko Moko to Yogiri. The scene then moves. At that moment, we are shown Yogiri, who gives the explanation explained by Celestina previously, that her friends are heading to the ancient forest for training. And when Danara asked who Celestina really was, suddenly something happened that shocked the place. A train carriage was suddenly destroyed, and at that moment, Yogiri immediately protected Danara. Then the scene changes to show Edgar. It turns out that among all of them, there is one who can survive Yogiri's attack. Because at that time, Yogiri only blinded his eyes. This made the person unable to be interrogated. Then a sage took out its eyes and gave healing to the creature. The sage is named Len. However, because he didn't get any effect, Len immediately took out his vampire fangs and bit his prisoner. His captive then turned into his bloodline, but still he couldn't get him the information he wanted. While the others were thinking about Yogiri, a hero suddenly arrived at that place. But the scene then shifts to the train. At that time, information was heard saying that there was a sage who was facing the aggressor in that place. And at that time, there was an aggressor who was fighting against a sage. The battle looked very fierce. Then Danara said to Yogiri, why not just get rid of them? Because they were blocking Yogiri's journey. But Yogiri explains that that means he can kill everyone who gets in his way, including people who are walking in front of his face. Yogiri then emphasized to Danara, even though he could kill everyone instantly, he would not kill people who had done nothing wrong or were not targeting him. But suddenly, an aggressor appeared right in front of them. And at that time, a sage then chased him while furious. The sage is named Santaru. Then he launched an attack on the aggressor, without paying attention to the people around him. The scene then moves to where Len is seen, who is currently fighting a hero. When the hero launched his attack, Len received the attack directly and injured several parts of his body. However, because he is a vampire sage type, all his wounds can be healed directly. Len then asked the hero why he launched an attack on a sage, because a hero's job is to destroy the Demon King. The hero's name is Ian. Ian seemed very angry with Len, because he knew all the bad plans the sages had. At that time, Ian immediately launched a big attack, using the Holy Sword Cartina to create a big explosion in the castle. At that time, Ian was sure that Len had died there. However, the next scene shows Yogiri again, and you can see that many people are dead around Yogiri. Then Yogiri asked the sage who had previously launched the brutal attack, because they were also affected by the attack. However, Santoro instead behaves impolitely in front of Yogiri and deifies himself as someone who must be respected by everyone. Because he was annoyed by Santoro's actions, Yogiri killed him instantly. The aggressor who saw that then said to Yogiri there were several things he wanted to talk to Yogiri about. Then the scene changes to show Len, who turns out to be still alive. Len also says to him whether your lover's name is Adele. Ian, who heard this, was shocked because Len was still alive, but Len said to Ian that he couldn't possibly die from such a trivial attack. Hearing Len's words, at that time Ian asked to be killed because he failed to kill Len. But because Len had no intention of killing the hero, he immediately threw him away from that place.
アリエルそのアリエルというのはどうやって逃れたどうせ死なないのだそのくらいで死ねるなら殺せ逃れてなどいない殺す気も起きない
On the other hand, Yogiri was negotiating with Aggressor. At that time, Aggressor asked Yogiri whether there was anything he could give Yogiri to repay Yogiri's good deeds. Yogiri then answered him, "Can you help me to return to my old world?" At that time, the aggressor explained that he only knew how to return to the aggressor's own world, but bringing them was still impossible because it was not the aggressor's original form. Plus, Yogiri was also said to be very dangerous by the aggressor, which made it impossible for him to take Yogiri. Because of this, Mako Mako also gave them advice. The scene then returns to showing Eldgard, who at that time was shocked to see the sage Sanryu dead in that place. We are then shown to a place where Sage Shion and other sages are discussing. They talked about Yogiri and Danara, who managed to kill a sage named Santaru. They were then confused because Yogiri's power was probably instant death, while Sanoru should have defense immunity from instant death. For the sages, their goal is to expel the aggressors, but they also cannot ignore people who are capable of killing sages. However, Cheyenne didn't allow anyone to dare touch the person who had become her sage candidate. But Cheyenne told Len she didn't mind if Len wanted to get rid of the darkness. And after that, Cheyenne then disappeared from that place. Then Len immediately summoned his aide, Misayuki, to lead the attack on Hanabusa. That was because ordinary troops could not possibly survive. Misayuki, who heard that, said that Len only wanted Hanabusa's destruction. But at time, Len was just silent. The scene then returns to showing Yogiri. At that time, they were seen resting somewhere and separated from the aggressor. Suddenly, Moko came back and gave the katana to Denora. The katana was obtained from the robot's body part. And finally, episode 2 ends here. Thank you so much for staying on this channel and watching our videos. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel so we can keep you up to date with our latest content. See you in the next video.